First and foremost, in any form of relationship, make absolutely no assumption about what the relationship is about. You don't know what it's about. No matter how strong it feels, no matter how strong the attraction, that doesn't tell you what the relationship is in your life for, because it can still serve many different purposes, even if you are absolutely attracted, magnetically attracted to someone, doesn't mean that it is a particular kind of societal assumption of what that relationship should look like in terms of how it plays out physiologically. So the idea is to drop all your assumptions and let the relationship show you what it is. And the idea of pain and suffering in any love relationship, again, may have to do with beliefs in lack of worthiness, or simply definitions you have about what those connections mean that actually are not real in that sense, that are not relevant for what the relationship actually is. So we would simply always encourage you to really clarify what definitions you have about what you think any relationship is supposed to be, because they're all basically for the purpose of reflecting to you what you need to know to be more in love with yourself and all that is, which will then give you more reflections of connection to other people as well in a more positive sense. But all suffering and all pain is generally the result of the resistance to your true self, your natural self, and the imposition of belief systems and definitions that are out of alignment with who you truly are.
Okay. How can I remain as my true, unconditional, loving self when my egoic self pops up and is very convincing as real? When I'm in a flow state, I can't see how I could forget my ego, and yet it comes and goes just like everything else somehow.
What you're referring to is the negative ego. You will never lose the ego as long as you're physical, because the ego is the physical personality that allows you to have a physical experience. So it's not about losing the ego. It's about defining yourself as in alignment with it and letting it do its job, which is just to focus you on having an experience in physical reality terms. But the idea of making it in control, having it be a controlling factor, like you have to know what's going to happen, you have to know what kind of outcome is going to happen for you to feel like you're in control, and so on and so forth, is not the focus that it was designed to have. Its only focus as a typical natural ego structure, a physical personality structure, is to give you an experience of physical reality. So the idea is to go with your flow, knowing that the ego, being allowed to do the job it was designed to do, will simply give you the opportunity to experience what's happening, but the ego is not designed to know what's going to happen. That's the purview, shall we say, of the higher mind.
So interesting. I act on my passions every moment I can, but lately I've noticed that I have expectations. How can I help myself to not have expectations? And what negative beliefs would I be holding on to by having expectations?
Expectations may be too general of a term because you can always expect something is going to happen. There's always a consequence to an action or a choice. What we are refining that definition to be is not having insistences or assumptions, not just general expectations. The idea of insistence means, again, you do not trust the way your life unfolds and what it brings you as being the thing you actually need, and think from the negative ego that you know best what the outcome should actually look like, when in fact it may not need to look like that at all for you to be truly served. So it's about dropping the assumptions as to what's supposed to happen, insistences on what you think should happen, and simply expect that what needs to happen will happen, and then how you respond to it will be exactly the measure of how much you have let go of any insistence on the outcome.
So how will I know if I'm actually following my excitement or I'm just avoiding fears?
Well, again, you have to be honest in your self-examination. If it comes right down to it, pretty much everyone knows the difference between excitement and anxiety. You simply have to be honest about why you would be afraid of something, why you might be anxious about something, by letting yourself feel that feeling and not dismissing it, not disguising it, not dampening it. If you are anxious, let yourself feel it so that it's clear that you're coming from a fear-based belief. And then you have something to work with. So honesty and willingness to experience the emotions as they come up and own them, because if you don't own them, you can't change them. Acknowledge them for what they are clearly, without fear, and then you will be able to examine and discern the difference between true excitement and anxiety very easily. You just have to be honest within yourself about what it is you're experiencing and examine whether or not you are running from something or running to something.
Couldn't like your negative ego delude you into thinking that what is actually your passion is not, and make you think you're running from fear, based on whether you're more like a self-critical person that would lean towards finding fault with yourself, with the way that you're following your passion. You don't understand what I'm saying?
Yes, but again, the idea is that's relatively temporary if you are open and willing to have an honest discussion with yourself about what it is you're actually experiencing. Always take a moment to stop. You don't have to rush headlong forward in anything. You can take a moment and examine your choices to find out whether that choice is based on a positive or a negative belief. Take that time. That's what that time is for. You don't have to rush ahead. So you will have the discernment if you understand that you're always willing to be open and honest with yourself and take the time to examine why you are choosing what you're choosing. That's the key. Why am I choosing this?
How can I find out my belief system behind a situation? I understand honesty is very important, and I'm completely honest and willing to explore myself. But I always go into some loop when finding answers, and I don't know how to break the loop. How can I break that loop of trying to find out what is my hidden belief system?
Explore the loop itself. In other words, the loop itself is obviously a fear-based belief system perpetuating itself and preventing you from moving forward. Therefore, you must be getting something out of it. The belief system within you must, in a sense, be convincing you that you're getting something out of looping. So ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I stop looping? What am I getting out of looping? It's obviously a procrastination mechanism. So, again, it still takes honest self-examination, but the subject of the examination is the concept of the loop itself. It doesn't happen automatically. You have been convinced by some fear-based belief system that you should loop. It's not out of your control. It may feel like it, but it's not. It's a choice you're making to continue looping because you're afraid that if you stop looping, something worse will happen. So take that stance and explore what you believe might be worse if in fact you didn't loop at all.
Is that essentially the same thing as like ruminating, where something happens, a person gets upset, and they just keep replaying it over and over and over in
Yes,
their mind?
yes. It's preventing them from moving forward because they have chosen to be in a loop of rumination. That should be your first clue that you're afraid that something worse will happen if you stopped doing that. It doesn't mean something will happen. It just means you're afraid that it will.
Okay. How do I know the difference between a limiting belief system that is using my emotions and thoughts versus my actual thoughts and emotions that come through my heart?
Again, we have answered this.
Okay.
You have simple, self-honest examination, and when you are willing to be open to that and truly clear and transparent within yourself, it's very easy to tell the difference between why you choose to do something and whether that is from fear and anxiety or from true excitement. Ask yourself, why am I choosing this? Why? How does this experience, even the negative one, serve me? Do I believe it safeguards me from something worse? You have to ask these questions of yourself, and you have to answer them honestly.
So another question is, real anger is around 15 seconds, right? And then after that, it turns into judgment, basically.
Yes.
So how about other emotions like sorrow, sadness, shame, being hurt, and all that when you're continuing to experience that beyond, let's say, 15 seconds?
All the same. It's all the same mechanism. And perhaps the idea, again, is better expressed as alignment. So guilt, shame, these things, again, are simply emotional components that in the natural state are simply matters of recognizing the difference between true alignment and how far out of alignment you may be based on the choices you make. It only takes about 15 seconds to have that sensation course through you and recognize that what that is a measurement of the difference between alignment and misalignment. That's all that sensation is. You're out of alignment. Therefore, if it lingers beyond the 15-second mark, you have already added self-judgment to it, gone into beliefs of lack of self-worth, lack of capability, so on and so forth. All of those experiences are simply a rush of energy that gives you the difference between alignment and misalignment so that you can choose to realign yourself or you can choose to wallow in self-judgment.
Hi, Bashar. How are you doing?
Perfect, and you? Good day?
Great. I'm very grateful for the interaction. Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure, my passion.
Thank you. So my first question is around aging. You've mentioned before that you're 100-some-year-old, but you still look like you're in your 30s. So I know you appreciate my interest in staying youthful. So there's a book by David Sinclair called Lifespan, where he explains that basically aging is the process of damage to the DNA. So I can walk through a quick example. For example, if a skin cell wants to replicate, it goes and it reads the instructions from the DNA to create a new cell. When the DNA is not damaged, all it finds is one set of instructions for a skin cell. But
Yes.
when we go through life and the DNA is damaged, the wrapping around some of the instructions get loose.
Yes.
And so now a skin cell goes to try to replicate into a new cell, and it finds different sets of instructions, for example,
Yes.
one for liver cell and whatnot.
Yes.
And that leads to defective cells, and therefore that leads to aging organs. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that, and if there is any way for us to prevent damage to the DNA, or even maybe reset it to its original state.
It all begins with energy. It all begins with state of being. It all begins with your belief systems about yourselves. Always start there. The patterns of energy are what determine what's going on within your DNA. And those patterns of energy, positive and negative, are all from the idea of what you have been taught to believe is true about your relationship to yourself, your relationship to others, your relationship to physical reality, all the definitions you hold on to that don't serve you, that are out of alignment with your true vibration. And it begins there. So being out of alignment with your true core frequency causes misalignments within your physical structure and in your DNA. So it all begins there. This is again why we give you the formula. Follow your passion. It keeps you aligned. That's the energy of connection between your physical and higher mind. It allows you to sustain a vibrational state of being that is representative of maturation, but not of denigration, not of disintegration. So it all starts with vibrational alignment, energy alignment within the self, and that translates into physical belief systems, definitions that you hold to be true that are not necessarily in alignment with who you really are.
Got it. Okay, so it's all about state being, but we need to be concerned about, for example, the collective consciousness and how it affects our DNA?
I would suggest that you be aware of it. You don't have to be concerned by it, but the more awareness you have of what you are making agreements to align with will certainly help guide you in what alignments and agreements you can let go of and which ones are actually beneficial for you.
Okay, got it. So if we actually kind of, I guess, control might not be the right word, but if we control our state of being, then it kind of overrides whatever collective consciousness is doing to our DNA.
Yes, unless you have chosen, and this could be unconsciously, to use the challenge in a particular way for yourself, then generally speaking, yes. As long as you allow yourself, not control, but allow yourself
Allow. Got it.
to align with your true core vibration, then yes, you can maintain a relatively youthful experience. Again, you can mature without the idea of denigrating yourself through the process you refer to as aging. However, again, some of this will still be a leftover residual experience from your connections to the collective consciousness and what you believe is possible or probable for you to experience. Now, this does not erase the idea that some people have chosen to experience the idea of aging and the denigration for their own purposes. So you may not necessarily eliminate all of it if people are using that experience to their benefit on a soul level in some way, shape, or form. So don't necessarily assume that it will all go away right away. But you can maintain a more youthful state and an energetic state by following the formula and staying in the present and being true to yourself and aligning harmoniously with your true core frequency.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And so as far as following the formula, I follow my excitement. So I do change a lot. And so I feel like that is part of following my excitement. Sometimes I do wonder whether this constant change is following my excitement versus, maybe avoidance of sun. Yeah. How do
Well, as long as you constantly wonder that, and as long as you constantly check in with yourself, as long as you are honest with your self-investigation, because I know that if you really think about it, you can tell the difference between excitement and anxiety, if you're honest.
Yep.
So as long as you keep checking, then you will navigate yourself properly. Remember that the people that simply proceed to explore the idea of negativity never actually stop and question whether or not they are going in the correct direction for themselves. So the idea is that your willingness to check in and make sure that you are staying on the path that is true for you will usually mean that you will stay on the path that is true for you. But you will face challenges in doing so, and facing those challenges is part of the point of experiencing your path. So that's okay.
Okay.
As long as you are aware that it could be from avoidance, then you will constantly investigate yourself and you will remain in the center overall.
Got it. Okay. So as long as I'm being creative and I'm finding solutions to those challenges and they're not feeling like a struggle, I guess they're there to serve me in some way.
You don't have to guess. They are.
They are. Yep.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I have another question, if it's okay. So got it. I had a recurring dream as a child, which is basically I used to go to the grocery store in the neighborhood, and I would come back, find our building is completely gone, start crying. This man dressed in white comes and kind of leads me to a pink temple with a long stairway to the sky and the clouds. Was that kind of is there a meaning to that dream, or is that?
It's a gentle reminder. It's a gentle reminder that physical reality is not your home, but you have a home somewhere else in spirit.
I see. So that's more the pink temple is more the spirit world.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for all your
passion and our pleasure. Good day.
Hi Bashar, my name is Jen and I live in Queensland, Australia in beautiful Sunshine Coast. I have just discovered your transmissions around Christmas time, December period, and they have helped me a lot. So thank you very much for everything that you have brought through for us here and now. During one of the shows that I was watching where you were bringing through a transmission, I was up to the point where there was question and answers, and one of the ladies answered what I felt was a very intense, energetic question. And all of a sudden, before you were about to answer, my power in my house went completely off, just for no reason. My question around this is, was that a pure coincidence, or was there something else happening? And if there was something else happening, is there any connection to me? And yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Bye.
Yes, there's no such thing in that sense as a coincidence in the sense of an accident. Everything is synchronistic. So when you felt that the question was intense, you allowed your own energy field to become more intense, and that interfered with the electromagnetic field of the electricity systems in your dwelling. So you raised your frequency to the point where you got a physical synchronistic demonstration of how far you had extended your vibrational frequency, how much you had raised it, to the point where it could actually manipulate and interfere with electrical fields in your reality.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
It's really nice to speak with you.
You as well.
I wanted to ask you, how does the process of falling asleep work, and how come we never remember the moment when we fall asleep?
Well, some people do, but the process is simply a transition between your focus on the idea of physical reality and your defocusing upon that idea, because you are recharging your physical body by reconnecting more strongly to spirit. So it is a very gentle transition, but it's kind of like having a dial that turns something down incrementally so that you don't necessarily always notice the transition from one state to another, but it's basically a defocusing of your intention on physical reality and now more of a focus on spiritual reality. Because the two are not that far apart, vibrationally speaking, at least at the borderline between the two, it may not always be necessary to notice when you cross, because it requires such a small shift in your vibration to go from physical to non-physical reality focus. And that's usually why people don't notice. Spiritual reality, non-physical reality, is closer vibrationally to physical reality than many of you think.
Okay, I think that answers it. I also wanted to ask you if people have really similar eyes or almost like the same looking eyes, does that can that mean that they are from the same oversoul?
Well, it can be a signal if that's the signal that was agreed to be able to tell. It doesn't have to be, but it can be used that way. Other things can be used that way too. Spirits may agree that they will have a particular mark or something that will remind them that because that is similar to someone else, that there may be a connection there. Because sometimes you need physical reminders of a connection that you have agreed to have that you may not otherwise remember in physical reality. So yes, it can be. It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
So it could theoretically be that one person would notice that connection or that similarity and another person would completely miss it?
Yes.
Okay. Another thing I really wanted to ask you is that you shared locations of some of the portals and the vortices that are in the United States area.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could share maybe some portals that are in Europe or Eastern Europe particularly.
Well, we have, to some degree, done some of that already, but there are several. Prague is a very strong portal in a lot of ways, a master portal in that area. So you might want to explore that.
What does the portal in Prague represent?
The portal in Prague represents an ability to connect to energies of the past, but in a way that can be adapted to moving into the future in a way that still creates a connection with community.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Yes, all right.
And one last question. It's kind of a personal, I guess. I have sometimes trouble feeling empathy towards some people, and I'm worried that may be a problem? And is there something that I can do to be more empathic?
Well, you say towards some people. Does that mean there are specific reasons why you don't feel empathy towards certain people because of what they do? Or why do you not feel empathy toward those people? Or were you just being general?
It just feels like sometimes I'm able to be empathetic to those same people, and sometimes I'm completely just switches off.
Because of something that they're saying or doing, or just for no reason apparently at all?
Well, it may be that related to my thoughts about them, probably, but
All right. And what are the thoughts that allow you to experience a shutdown of your empathy? You do understand. Do you understand that you can have empathy without agreement?
what does
You don't
that
have to agree with someone or think of them a certain way to still have empathy.
Okay,
Do you understand that?
I think so. It feels as if I understand it, but in my
All
mind,
right.
it does.
Well, can you give us a specific example of the kind of thought you might suddenly have about someone that makes you feel like you can no longer be having empathy for them? Can you give us a specific example?
Yes, well, I have some friends, for example, which I had really good memories with, and then I had really bad ones too. And it
Yes.
just feels sometimes that I can remember only the good ones or only the bad ones. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. All right. So what you're basically saying is that your empathy shuts down when you are judging others.
Yes. Okay.
Well, then you are judging them.
All right.
So the idea is that in judging them, you are not allowing yourself to feel connected to them. Now, again, you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to connect strongly with the experience that they may be promoting
yes.
in order to understand that you can have compassion and you can have empathy with the understanding that they're going through a challenge. It's not anything you have to take personally. So the idea of shutting down your empathy is that you may be taking some of those things personally rather than simply looking at them objectively and recognizing with compassion that, all right, they're going through some kind of a tough challenge. And I understand that their behavior is exhibiting that. And while I don't agree with aligning with that behavior, it's not what I prefer, I can still empathize that they're going through a challenge because you've gone through challenges in your life as well. And the idea is that you would still want people to understand you're going through those challenges and that you're going to make yourself a better person by facing them in a positive way. So you give them compassion and you send them energy to be able to face their challenges in a positive way that helps them become more aware of who they truly are and helps them grow. So you can have your empathy and your connection to them to that degree without feeling like empathizing with them means you agree with the belief systems that they're exhibiting or the behavior that they're exhibiting. Does that help?
Yes, very much. And to make this a habit, I just keep on, have to consciously keep on practicing that, right?
Well, yes, but again, you have to find the reason why it doesn't make sense to do otherwise.
Okay.
Then it becomes something that you constantly do. You will always respond that way. In a sense, look at it from the perspective of an adult or a parent to a child. If a child makes a mistake, if a child has a tantrum, you understand that you don't reject the child. You know that the child may need some guidance. You know that the child may need some compassion, may need some very loving communication, or just needs to be left alone for a while to figure things out. But you don't remove your love from the child. You don't disconnect from the child. You know that it's simply part of the process of the child's experience in growing up and learning how to be someone who can experience balance in life, who gets a sense of themselves in a stronger, more stabilized way. So you can look at your friends that way, even though they may no longer technically be children. Anyone going into a fear-based reality and a fear-based behavior, in a sense, is still learning to grow. So you can perhaps relate to them as you would to a young child who's still learning their way.
Okay, I want to say try, but I will make that my reality.
That's up to you. All I'm simply saying is find out what the reasons are why you wouldn't do that, and realize that in coming up with a reason why you wouldn't allow yourself to still have compassion and empathy for what they're going through, then that's your challenge. And you're exhibiting the same thing that they're going through by holding on to something that kills your empathy and compassion.
Okay, thank you.
They're reflecting that to you.
All right, I will do that.
All right, up to you.
Thank you. I think that is it.
All right. Thank you very much. Good day.
Good day. Thank you.
I wanted to say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. Thank you. Thank you once again for the co-creation of these interactions and the allowance of this transmission in this way at this time. We would like to begin this transmission by reminding you that it is titled Nature's Social Network. The idea being that there are a variety of ways that different elements, different expressions in nature communicate with one another, because you are all immersed in a web of energy and information. But there are very specific ways in which these connections in the energy web are expressed depending upon the expression of nature. First, we remind you that you do not exist in nature. You are nature. Your bodies are an expression of the nature of the reality that you have chosen to experience. We know that for some time, many individuals within humanity have, in the past, thought of themselves as being separate from nature, maybe living in it, maybe being surrounded by it, but not necessarily considering themselves to be of it. But you are. Your world has given you the ability to crystallize a physical form out of the elements of nature that exist in your reality at your vibratory level of energy, rendering that energy, crystallizing that energy into what you call the perception of matter. So you are absolutely an extension of nature on Earth. But in societies that exist on your planet who have forgotten that, not everyone, but many, then there is an important need to allow yourselves to begin to experience yourselves once again, as you did long ago, as expressions of nature. This would be the first step in being capable of perceiving and connecting in a conscious way to the web of information, the web of energy that connects you all, that connects all nature, all things, in your experience of reality. But we will begin by describing one of the ways, or two of the ways, or maybe three of the ways, we will see, that different expressions in nature have of expressing this connectivity and utilizing this connectivity in a variety of ways to support life, to support consciousness and its expressions in your reality. Let us begin with the trees. We have talked about the idea from time to time that trees, in a sense, are very much like antennae protruding upwards into the sky from the earth. And the way they are structured based on certain mathematical ratios, they are sensitive to many different kinds of higher level energies, and they can, like an antenna, receive those energies in the very fine tips of their branches and leaves and transform and transmit and step down and allow that energy to be guided into the earth, to be used in a variety of ways, to be tapped into by whatever needs to tap into that energy at whatever frequency is relevant for the different life form that may choose to tap into that energy and utilize that connective energy web. But more than that, deep underground, in the roots of trees and plants, there is another expression of this connective network, this social network. In any given group of trees, you will find in these forests that the roots of the trees, in whatever way they may choose to spread out, are also connected to what has been termed in your language the mycelial network. The mycelial network is a type of growth of fungal filaments that attach to the roots and go from one tree to another, to another, to another, to another, throughout the grove, throughout the forest. So in a forest where the trees are dense, all the trees are connected underground by their roots through this fungal mycelial network. Now, this network of filaments that connect all these roots are not only for the purpose of transmitting energy, are not only for the purpose of transmitting information, but they provide a true demonstration of the intelligence inherent in all life forms on your planet, whether you think they are necessarily intelligent or not. Not only can information and energy be transmitted through the mycelial network in much the same way that your neural net in your brains transmit impulses, electrical impulses, between all the different neurons, this mycelial network can transmit those kinds of impulses, but also serves many other functions. The mycelial network can actually transmit water from one tree to another where water may be lacking. So the trees that are receiving more water will know through the information of the mycelial network which trees may not be receiving enough water, and they will actually intentionally send more water through the mycelial network to the trees that require it. They will send food and nutrients through the mycelial network as well to the trees that require it. This is a true transport system underground for the trees of a forest. And there is vast amount of information, vast amount of exchange going on under your feet when you walk through a forest, like an underground subway network that you may not even have been aware of going on just a few feet underground, right under your feet. All this talk, all this communication, foodstuffs, water, impulses back and forth. It's very busy going on under there. It's its own kind of city. Now, sometimes you can tell where these mycelial networks might be because one of the offshoots of the fungal filaments might be that at a certain point, mushrooms and other fungal forms will come up through the ground, showing you exactly where some of these mycelial networks may have blossomed into another expression and form of life that then aids and assists and adds to the overall communication web going on in that forest. One of the things that has come down through stories and legends on your planet is the idea of what you call fairy rings, which are usually described as the idea of mushrooms in a circle forming a fairy ring, as you call it, to which different forms of nature spirits and elementals may be attracted, or you may be able, if you are able to perceive them, find them gathering in those areas. This is because it is their form of connecting to the mycelial network. They actually can use that ring, and it grows in a ring for the purpose of actually allowing other beings of different frequencies to tap into that network when they need to. In a sense, you could say, euphemistically, the fairy rings of different kinds of mushrooms that crop up from the mycelial network underground so that there can be an interface with different kinds of nature spirits to that web of information are almost, in a sense, kind of like their Stonehenge. You understand? So it forms that circle to capture that energy, to transmit that energy in a very efficient way. It forms a kind of energy web lens by being in a circular form, and that helps aid and assist in the amplification of the energy, of the information, and it also transmits it to the particular vibration needed for the elementals and the nature spirits to be able to access that information based on their nature. Now, there are other forms of communication and social networks in nature. When you're talking about the idea of the elements themselves, not elementals, but the elements themselves, what you would call the hard minerals, what you would call rocks, what you would call boulders, what you would call foothills, what you would call mountains. There is another system that is concurrent with what we are describing that uses the energy web in a different way. One thing that only very few of your scientists have begun to realize and are beginning to investigate is that there is what we might term a deep resonance field that exists, that is, generally speaking, on a vibratory level that is below your ability to sense. If you are sensitive enough, you can feel it, you can tap into it, but generally speaking, it is not always audible to you. It is a very deep, thrumming, vibrating, resonant energy, the deep energy resonance field that is part of the electromagnetic field of your planet that it issues, but it is tuned and pitched in such a way that it actually forms a communication network between all of the crystalline minerals and rocks and mountains on your planet. This is the vibratory level of the nature of that kind of consciousness, of mineral or crystalline consciousness. And it communicates readily in a variety of ways through that deep resonance field. Now, some of your scientists are also beginning to understand and realize that everything is made of consciousness. Everything is self-aware in its own way. It may not be self-aware in the way that you express it, but nevertheless, it is still a reflection. It knows itself as a reflection of all that is in its own way, in its own interpretation. And they are recognizing that consciousness is pervasive and permeates everything in creation. Very few cutting-edge quantum physicists are beginning to explore this. The term they have used for this is called panpsychism, or the idea that they are now beginning to express that there is a proto-consciousness field that exists everywhere, and out of which consciousness in its various forms of expression may arise. So the proto-consciousness field itself is another way that many beings throughout creation will form this sort of energy net and energy web. This is generally what is used by what you would call animals on your planet, humans on your planet, in a variety of ways. They tap into the idea of this consciousness field. And based on the configuration of the consciousness, in other words, what kind of a being it is, because the kind of being you are is a description of how you are energetically arranged as a kind of a matrix to filter this consciousness field through yourself and express it in the ways that are germane and relevant for the description of what you are, of who you are. So animals, humans, all that kind of life will utilize the consciousness field and will, through themselves, filter it in such a way as to create different frequencies, different vibrations that are given off that are specific to those particular types of animals, those particular types of beings. So this is what it means when you learn to talk cat, talk dog, talk fox, talk dolphin, talk any kind of animal, is picking up on the specific resonant frequency of the consciousness field that they are using, their particular wavelength, their particular, well, if you wish, radio station, to dial in yourself to those frequencies. Now, the idea of humanity, in a sense, not being in any way, shape, or form better than any of this, has itself, by definition, one interesting and unusual difference in all of this, and that is not that other animals can't do it if they need to, but the idea of humanity, of what you would call sentiency in your form, has the ability to actually, and is built into the ability to actually go up and down the range of these frequencies we are describing. So that you can tune in, so that you can, in a sense, funnel through you all the different wavelengths, all the different frequencies, all the different forms of communication and resonance to express an amalgamation of these ideas, a kind of combination, a kind of synergy of all these ideas. You are the form on Earth that can process all of this into one large overall understanding and expression of holism on your planet, which is why you think of yourselves in many ways as the stewards of the Earth, of the land, the humans, of the sea, the dolphins and the whales. So the dolphins and whales also have this ability to go through a range of frequencies very naturally to pick up on and tie together and link together and express synergistically the idea of many different kinds of forms of life and expressions on your planet. This is why, in a sense, it is given to you to be the caretakers. Now, in the past, because of negative definitions and negative belief systems, many humans on your planet have thought that this meant that you have domination over all the other life on your planet. This is not the case. In the old interpretation, in some of your ancient scriptures, where it says that mankind has dominion over the earth and all life on earth, the ancient term dominion in that sense meant caretaker, not overlord. So the idea is dominion is given to you to be the one to process and synergize and caretake and represent all the different forms of life on your planet and nurture and support and give life to all of these things along with them in a way that creates this holistic net to be amplified and magnified so that all life forms can pick up on the information they require to sustain themselves in the best possible way, the most beneficial possible way for all concerned. In a sense, you have the ability to actually become the frequency of the net itself, and thus, in any given situation or circumstance, connect into whatever kind of consciousness expression you need to, be it the trees, be it the animals, be it the rocks, by simply being sensitive enough to the fact that you are the synergizers to go within yourself and get more precise ability to tell the difference between the different frequencies that are expressed by the different forms of life, so that in honing in on those frequencies, you can have the kinds of ongoing communication and exchange of information that is possible to have with all the different forms of life on your planet. You form your own nature social network on a certain resonant frequency that is itself representative of the combination of all the frequencies. Is this making some sense to you?
Yes.
All right. So the idea, again, is that, of course, everything expresses itself in a different way, a different modality. And it's about really tuning in and, in a sense, taking on the mantle of that modality and expressing it as strongly through your reflective aspects, your reflective nature as you possibly can to strengthen and amplify and reinforce that modality for that form of life. So when you are learning to communicate with a dog, with a cat, with a bird, you are actually taking on the resonance, fine-tuning to that resonance, and reflecting it back in a way that actually starts a back and forth kind of energy beat. And in that energy beat, as it levels itself into that particular frequency, you then start to perceive communication in the form in which it is expressed from that animal, because you are expressing that aspect within yourself, because you contain all those frequencies that are representative of all the animals and all the trees and all the rocks and the sky and the sea and everything on your planet. So it's about becoming a very fine-tuned station, a very fine-tuned antenna, receiver, and transmitter, so that you can really start to perceive those different frequencies in a very fine-grained way and really lock into them much more strongly, so that you can amplify that vibration between yourself and the life form you are communicating with, and then start to really interpret and transceive the communication in the modality that it is expressing itself from, because you become like them. This is the secret of the shamans, in the sense of actually being able to tap into parallel realities in such a way that they actually represent themselves as the animal they are in communication with. This is the source of the idea of seeing shamans turn into birds, turn into jaguars, turn into various animals. It's not in a sense that any molecular rearrangement has happened. What is happening is that, like the sages that Willa has spoken of, they have the ability to understand their connection to parallel versions of themselves in parallel realities so strongly that they can actually represent themselves and bring in a representation from a parallel reality strongly enough that you actually perceive that parallel reality representation instead of the human form that was basically in the parallel reality that you inhabit. So they are presenting a reflective mirror so strongly that you think they have actually changed their shape. You follow me? But all you're getting is a reflection from a parallel reality because the shaman is being a perfect mirror angled at just the correct angle to reflect that parallel reality expression of their consciousness from another parallel reality into your consciousness. So a shaman is a perfect mirror that operates at different angles, reflecting different realities to you. You understand? It is not about the idea of molecular change. That's not what shapeshifters do. They take advantage of this consciousness field in such a way as to extend beyond the consciousness field of what you consider to be your universe and go into the consciousness field of other universes, and therefore can reflect things and expressions of consciousness from those other parallel realities into the reality in which they originated. So this all comes down to the idea that you are ensconced in, embedded in, immersed in a titanic, infinite social network of energy webs at certain vibratory levels, and you can tap into these more consciously as you start to explore within yourself your caretaker nature to all of nature, and remind yourself, again, first and foremost, that you are not above nature, not below nature, not separate from nature, but are nature. So find your natural selves. This is why we suggest to you in many occasions that it's not about finding out how to be normal. It's about finding out how to be your natural self, because your natural self is tapped in, does understand these connections, and when you relax the idea of what you think you're supposed to be and actually allow yourself to be what you are as nature expressed you, you will find yourself being a part of nature, not separate from it, and these kinds of communications and your ability to tap into nature's social network, you will find will already be inherent within your skills, your talents, your abilities to perceive this more and more readily. Does this make sense? Yes. All right. So let us proceed in a natural way and open up to the idea of sharing at this time, if you wish. As you prepare, or it'll say we will continue the transmission by suggesting and encouraging each and every one of you to relax. Start breathing gently, deeply, easily, effortlessly, and let go of the cares of the day. You are here and you are now, and there is nowhere more important to be. So allow yourselves to continue to breathe gently, easily, deeply, as your lights begin to play and your music begins to play. Allow yourselves to fall into the dream and drift with us in your consciousness. As you gaze upon the holotope, and realize that what you are looking at is a reflection of your own consciousness, and all the lines of light and information and energy that stretch out from you toward all probabilities. And as you remember the experiment and the exercise that we did this day, and those things that were duplicated, reinforced, and strengthened that may not be to your preference, and those things that were duplicated, reinforced, and strengthened that were in alignment with who you prefer to be. Allow yourselves to see in the different directions of the spirals and the lines, those lines leading to all of those probabilities, negative and positive, positive and negative, with you at the center, in the Trinity spot of neutrality, where all things are equal and all things are valid. And even though there may be things that are not in alignment with your preference there, they are nevertheless equally valid as choices and experiences within all that is. So that you can learn by staying in that neutral space to choose what you prefer without invalidating what you do not prefer and giving it more energy than it requires just to be, just to be, just to be. Or just because you can see it doesn't mean it will affect you. But now that you are aware of where the collective consciousness focus might be, you can begin to stretch your imagination along those lines of light and begin to allow information to come to you from parallel realities that exist simultaneously with your experience, but which are more reflective and representative of the reality experiences you prefer, that are representative of your joy, of your passion, of your truth, your being, your essence, your core, your signature frequency of life, light, and love. And remember that this transmission was titled The Window of Opportunity and Discovery. This discovery is an opportunity for you with this new title to realize that you always, no matter what you discover within yourselves, individually or collectively, that discovery is always an opportunity for change, for expansion, for growth, for experience that serves and supports and nurtures life, love, and light. And nothing is chiseled in steel or stone that does not represent your best essential selves, for you are the ones to chart the course of your life, regardless of what anyone else may choose. Allow yourself to feel the currents that draw you toward the shores that you prefer to inhabit, toward the shores that you prefer to discover within the infinite sea of your being. You create the maps. You chart the course. You are the compass needle pointing to your magnetic north, your truth, your essence, your journey, along with all the other journeys that harmonize in their own way with yours. Different paths, all leading to the same effect of passion and joy, creativity and love, and the expressions of them in your life, because that is the essence of your being, the true power that requires the gentlest touch. No force required, no force necessary, for the current flows already to those places that you need to go. All you need to do is find the appropriate current that is you and let it take you. Let it guide you. Let it pull you towards more of yourself, towards discovering more of who you are. Allow yourself to drift and dream within that current and know that every change within you is a total and complete change of the entirety of the universe you experience. You never step into the same river twice. There are more branches on the tree than you can see, and there is always a new alternative and a new path that is more harmonious and in alignment with the true essential being that you are. A a more natural path that allows you to know that you are not just in nature, but you are nature, an expression of the creativity of existence itself, an extension and a reflection of all that is, that you are discovering more and more of every day in every way, with your intentions to be at peace, in love, in light, and express yourself as harmonious life. Harmonious life. For that is the true definition of life, is to be in harmony and to expand and to integrate and to know yourself. Chart those courses on that map, on the endless sea of discovery that is the essence of your being, that is the essence of creation. And as you stand on the deck of that ship, the wind in your sails, the salt air in your lungs, take a deep breath in and feel alive and let it out. And add that breath to the sails so they may billow and carry you forth ever more swiftly upon that sea. And take another deep breath in and feel invigorated and refreshed and alive, and exhale into the sail that it may carry you forth ever more swiftly upon that sea. And take a deep breath in and feel the vibrations of your being, and hold it and hold it and blow it into the sail. For now you are the winds of change, the winds that guide you, that fill your sails, propelling you along that current, leading you to those beautiful shores, those brilliant shores, the sunlit shores, the moonlit shores, upon which beautiful wave after wave after wave of life and light and intelligence and brilliance and consciousness and beauty and grace wash upon those shores, and you land upon that shore. And though it may be to you an uncharted land, it is still a land made of you. And every new footstep and footprint you leave upon that beach is made within your consciousness and awakens within you more memory, more understanding, and more realization of the shores upon which you now walk, and opens up before you a magnificent and amazing vista of life, trees and lush jungles that contain mysteries and secrets of beauty and priceless gems of discovery, of consciousness, of awareness, of reflectivity, of self-awareness within you. Treasure chest upon treasure chest lies on these shores for you to discover, to appreciate yourselves and grow in value within yourselves, within your own understanding and relationship to yourselves. The deepest appreciation, like the deepest parts of the ocean, and the lofty gratitude and grace of the infinite blue skies and the space and stars above, and the land and the sea that stretches out before you. You stand upon the shores of discovery, before an infinite horizon, never ends, Chart your course. Pay attention to where you are. Pay attention to what you hear. Pay attention to what you know to be true. And chart your course and arrive upon those shores and discover not only more of yourself, but all the reflections that are waiting there for you. The reflections of us, the reflections of your guides, the reflections of your higher mind, the reflections of your ancestors, the reflections of your descendants, the reflections of all of the simultaneous, concurrent, parallel nows. Connect to what you need, for it is given to you, easily and effortlessly and joyfully. Accept the gifts that creation has to give. Accept the gifts of creation that you are. Give the gifts that you are to those waiting for them, so that they may also chart a course and discover the shores of their being in the uncharted waters that lay before them. Allow yourself to drift and dream upon the currents of the infinite sea. Swim in the depths and drink deeply of life, and be refreshed and feel alive. And ponder, and ponder, and ponder the probability that lay before you, that lay within you, the probability engine that you are. Choose, choose, choose. Allow yourself to take a deep breath in and let it out. Allow yourself to take a deep breath in and let it out. Allow yourself to take a deep breath in and hold it, and hold it, and hold it, and let go of everything that is no longer relevant for who you prefer to be. Be at ease, be at peace, be in joy, be you. Allow your music to soften, allow your lights to dim, and continue to just breathe gently and easily, and float freely in the void that contains all probabilities, for it is not empty, though it may sometimes seem to be so. But in the silence, you will find your voice. Continue now to just drift and dream gently with us for a time.